Live from iRacing's virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the final race on the round of 16 as we continue with the premier sim racing Outlap Motorsports Truck Series playoffs. So far in this round, Richard Regan and Ted Lowendick have won their way into the round of 12, along with a handful of other drivers locking in already on points. But tonight, a unique road course cutoff race is going to determine the first four drivers eliminated from championship contention. We're happy that you're hanging out with us as always on a Wednesday evening here on Green Flag TV. Our producer Dustin, Ollis, myself, Evan Posocco, and Derrick Watson in the booth. And Derrick, you've been having a front row seat thus far to the excitement of the round of 16 so far as we head into tonight here at Charlotte for the Sheriff Racing Design 215, in which we will know the 12 drivers who are moving on.
Yeah, and you know what? This is not the only road course cutoff of the season. Look at that down there on November 12th, Evan. Coda serves as the cutoff for get to your final four. So you better be a great road course racer this season if you want to be successful in the playoff format. And as you said, so far, we've been to the ovals of Kansas and New Hampshire. We're going to Chicagoland next week, the track that's trying to make a resurgence in NASCAR. So let's go and take a look at some points. The word playoffs is going to get used all night and all season long. So we'll show you your first graphic and then the second graphic that shows you how the round of 12 is shaping out. 5 drivers have already claimed their spots. That's Regan, Lowendick, Holly, O'Brien, and Mark Kalin. And then basically by starting the race tonight, Evan, I would suspect Loving, Morgan, and probably Jeff Evans, I would think. Probably even maybe 9th and Robert Barney have all probably locked. Thomas Inc.'s a proverbial lock. So we're looking basically at 11th on back. 11th, 12th, back through 16 here. Let's just make a square of it here on your screen and show you here. There's only about 24 points dividing these drivers, Evan. So this right now is the battle all night long for the playoff spot.
And you have to wonder, if you're a Doug Evans, 16 points behind, is that far enough where a top 5 finish, a top 10 finish isn't enough? Do you have to think, even though mathematically you could point your way in, is it a scenario where you've got to finish second and everybody else who you're chasing against has got to finish, 29th, 30th, and 31st? Is that a proverbial must-win position for him? Same with Bumgarner. I think Gagnon, Hunter, Lane, and Dunn. Those are going to be the 4 exciting ones to watch, and we'll see how that 6-truck battle shakes out over the course of tonight's 75-minute contest. Well, as always, I want to say a big thanks to all of our partners who make tonight's broadcasts possible. It starts at the top with our friends at Outlap Motorsports. And Outlap Motorsports is more than just a hobby, it's therapy. They know the garage, the paddock, and the driver's seat can be a safe space. That's why Outlap proudly supports men's mental health and encourages drivers to check in with themselves and each other, because what happens off the track matters just as much as what happens on it.
We're also going to thank Sheriff Racing Design for the Sheriff Racing Design 215. Sheriff Racing Design turns iRacing passion into art. From high-quality posters and professional racing photos to custom iRacing renders with lifelike backgrounds, they bring your favorite cars and moments to life on and off the track. Whether it's real or virtual, they got the eye for speed.
And of course, a big thanks to the folks over at Hyperion Racing. Hyperion Racing is a top-tier esports team competing at the highest level of sports car racing on iRacing. With a focus on endurance and team events, the team is built for performance and results. While sports car racing is their background, oval racing has always been a core part of their identity and blood. From short tracks to super speedways, Hyperion Racing applies the same strategy, precision, and competitive edge to every race. Hyperion Racing, believe the hype. So big thanks to those partners and others that we'll talk about as tonight's coverage carries on for bringing us continuing coverage of this round of 16 for the Outlap Motorsports Truck Series playoffs as we are inside of what is the final few moments of the qualifying session here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. And it is a new layout to the Charlotte Roval, tweaked and updated on the iRacing service, Derrick, to match what you'll see in action this coming weekend with the stars of NASCAR.
Yeah, most of those changes, if not all those changes, basically, Evan, happened in the infield. We'll see a much sharper hairpin in turns 7 and 8, and it'll be an exciting night. But for now, let's take a look at the starting grid.
Yeah, we'll head trackside and take a look at the Profit Python starting grid, and it'll be Bradley Hawley on pole out of the Waterback Racing stable, bringing us to the green flag tonight. His 1 minute 23.78 was the best time of the mole in the qualifying session, and Mark Kalin in the Outcast Racing 62 will start alongside in P2. Jeff Evans and Richard Regan Jr. will make up row number 2. They'll start in 3rd and 4th position, along with your row number 3 starters. P5 is Daniel Knight, and P6 goes to James O'Brien. Back on number 4, P7 on the grid is going to go to your number 7 starter qualifier. That's going to be the 4 Reese Bogue, should say. And then the 171, that's Nicholas Schwartz, the Miracle Flow Motorsports truck in 8th. Then rounding out your top 10, P9 starter tonight, the 26 of Robert Barney, and Dustin Baumgartner in the 16 rounds out your top 10.
Thomas Sinks back in P11. He's next to the 816 of Nicholas Acosta back in P12. We're back into P13 to find Jamie Graham, and he is next to Colton Lane, one of those drivers who's right on the bubble of making the playoffs. P15 is Brett Adams next to Nicholas Hunter, who's 1 point back on that bubble, by the way. P17 is Steve Loving. He's next to Stacy Hunter, the 27 and the 71 side by side. P19, Blaine Adams sits next to Mike Toomer Jr. back in P20.
And continuing on through, it's going to be Nicholas Gadina, who starts in the number 21 spot, along with Evan Williams, rolling from 22nd. Final truck to take its time in qualifying will go to Zach Williams, but a whole host of drivers, many based on penalties, not allowed to qualify. Ted Lowendick will start 24th, Matt Gagnon 25th, James Morgan 26th, Jacob Dunn 27th, Doyle Lawrence 28th, Colton Easterday 29th, Zachary Burnt 30th, with Doug Evans, Brian Tope, and Nick Serif 31st, 32nd, and 33rd. That's a look top to bottom at your Profit Python starting grid. Every second counts on the track and in making money. Like a perfect pit stop, the right deal at the right time means big profits. Introducing Profit Python, the ultimate Discord for deal hunters and side hustlers. Get blazing fast alerts on price drops, secret sales, and hidden jackpots before anyone else. The race to profit is on. Don't get left in the dust. Join now at wap.com/Profit Python or scan the QR code on your screen now. Profit Python. Strike fast, profit faster.
Well, you know, Evan, as your cars are getting rolled off here on the grid and off the grid, you'll see here coming out here now through the first couple turns in the road course, turns 3 and 4. Let's take a look back real quick at last week. Myself, Nolan Rimple, had the pleasure of calling the race, the Outlap Motorsports race from the Kansas Speedway. We'll watch the photos come by here in a second that were provided by Mr. Hedge, and some amazing photos they are. Great battles all night long. There was a great battle up front. Richard Regan was up front for a while. Mark Kalin was up front for a while. But eventually that winner came down to be Ted Lowendick. Watch some of the great photos you'll see here from Mr. Hedge. Because, you know, at Mr. Hedge, sim racing is full of unforgettable moments, and Mr. Hedge can help you capture them all. From first wins to fresh liveries, even the crashes you'll never forget, Mr. Hedge turns virtual racing into memories worth sharing. They're clean, they're sharp, and they're made for sim racers. Visit mrhedge.co.uk to get your best moments in focus. And there's Ted's truck right there on Victory Lane, Evan. So he locked himself in. And this week, I'm glad he did, because this week he's got to start from the back. Other developing story, by the way, as you're coming here into the back straight, Jacob Dunn had a small lead on that playoff bubble. Drive through penalty to start the race. Jacob Dunn on the first green flag lap will have to drive through. He will drop to the end of the field, Evan. So he's going to have a long fight all night long to protect that narrow points lead on that playoff bubble.
is going to be fighting from behind. And again, these races have no scheduled cautions. Race control made it clear to the drivers during the briefing before the qualifying session. Yes, they reserve the right to throw it. They have no intention in doing so. It would take some sort of cataclysmic accident or issue within the service for us to see a caution. So it does mean maybe a bit of a pro and a con, right? You're going to have a lot of green flag laps to be able to get into your rhythm and catch up. But for somebody who has a drive-through or somebody who starts at the back, you will not have the ability to get positions in bulk by grouping the field up with some restarts. After tonight's 7 races, so we crown a champion, but first and foremost, we have to send 4 drivers home as we get set for the final race of the round of 16. Happy that you're with us on Green Flag TV for a bit of an oval challenge. Let's go road racing in Charlotte. Trouble in the back of the field. It's burnt, but all in all, Derrick, very impressed with how clean the field is for the most part as they get to the infield section. Easterday 95 also with some issues, but they all seem to be single trucks.
Yep, there's their 3rd truck of the night. That's Zach Williams in the 89. So that's burnt, that's Easterday, and that's Williams. All of them spun out here in the first lap, getting those tires warmed up a little challenging. There's our first look at that new hairpin that we'll face all night long. Seen the battle here with Bogue, O'Brien, and others back through the track here. Now on your ticker, Evan, important to note, drivers with the green backgrounds in their numbers, they are locked in the playoffs. Drivers in orange, they need to fight their way in. So that's how you can tell all night long who's in and who's out of the playoffs.
Yeah, that is key. Also, we'll be watching those highlighted indicators on the time and in scoring as the night carries on. But slow and losing ground up on the outside of what is turn 4 on the oval here at Charlotte is that number 171 machine of Nicholas Schwartz dropping back. Up front, Bradley Hawley, so far so good. As you see now, that mandatory pass-through penalty is happening for the driver of the number 3 machine. It's Jacob Dunn, who will have to drive down. It's going to drop him all the way to probably 2nd or 3rd last in the running order. He may stay ahead of some of the trucks who spun on lap number 1, but that's it.
So let me play devil's advocate for why this might be a bit of good news for Jacob Dunn. These first few laps are going to be chaotic. They're going to be wild. I suspect we'll see a couple more spins, a little bit of contact. But for Dunn, he's going to have clean track up ahead. He's going to have a chance here just to kind of run his own race and see what he can make happen. Speaking of making things happen, here's Richard Regan Jr. He's the driver in P3. They're now back up on the NASCAR oval here, Evan, and they're going to try to make their run through down to this very uniquely shaped bus stop or chicane here on the back straight.
And on board is you take a second look on the top of the screen of an incident that happened early, turn number 1. That's the number 88 machine off and around. So trouble for Doyle Lawrence, who spins gently in that heartburn turn number 1. Tricky spot. We were a little bit worried about how the field in bulk would be able to get through that corner to kick off this race. But they were able to get through, again, pretty clean as a group. But that didn't mean that we were clean all the way around. There's contact between Williams and Gagnon. That one on the infield portion of the racetrack. Right there is where one of the biggest changes to this layout is very visible.
Yeah, some contact there. Matt Gagnon trying to secure the playoff spot. He was behind the bubble when the race started and needs to have a clean race here. Matt, by the way, had his primary sim racing hardware fail this week, Evan. His typical wheel is not racing with. He's now using an old Logitech wheel. He said it's not just the wheel, though, Evan, that's weird. He's got a new seating position, got new everything to learn in less than 24 hours.
It's tricky. We've talked many times when we look at the various onboards about how peculiar drivers could be about their peripherals, about their hardware at home, and how it factors into their comfortability behind the wheel. Not an easy change, as often in the grass on the infield part of the racetrack is maybe the number 1 truck of Graham. So Jamie Graham going to blend back up into the line, but going to cost him quite a few positions. And now more issues. That looks like Williams right off at turn number 2 entering the infield as we take a second look at what happened there. And That looks like maybe just a downshift gone wrong.
Yep, these trucks are very, very sensitive in this road course. A lot of times, if you want to get this thing turned around or you want to get it up to speed or anything, it is very, very hard to do it correctly. And Matt Gagnon up on the curbs, and he's going to be okay. You see an onboard look there. There's Ted Lowendick, by the way, in the bottom of your screen. He's focused into this race. He wants to get back to the field. Ted, of course, an accomplished road racer across the iRacing service. So if I had to bet on one person who I thought maybe could make this run from back to front, it might be Theodore Lowendick. There's Mike Toomer Jr. in the middle of your screen with the green numbers on the truck. He's just trying to have a nice, quiet, solid run here, and so far so good. And of course the drivers we've seen really turned around already. There's been a good number of them, but I think things, as the tires warm up, will start to calm down a little bit.
Yeah, and again, we know that this race is going to be green through the 75 minutes. It's interesting because 75-minute timer, that probably puts most of our oval races at a pretty average length compared to what you see in some other leagues. But as you see a dive down to the inside on that new part down turn number 7 as they blend back it up and onto the racetrack, what we really aren't used to seeing is, road races in other NASCAR leagues, Derrick, if they go green all the way like most do, sometimes they're shorter. Like most leagues, you're looking at your road course races being the shortest thing on your calendar. Not the case here. So this is a pretty unique, long challenge for some of these drivers. Is one truck, Hunter, missed the exit of the bus stop completely there and hands a spot or two away to Brett Adams at least.
And that may put Nick Hunter back by the bubble. We saw in that playoff graphic a second ago, he was just up in points on Jacob Dunn in that battle for 12th, and he lost his spots. We'll see later what that does. Here's Richard Regan. He's going to try and run down Jeff Evans, tries to make the crossover. And Richard Regan said, last night when we got a chance to talk to him, still having lots of VR issues, has not really solved those yet. He's able to race, but not really able to put all the practice time in he wants to, Evan. So that's why I think what we're seeing a different Richard Regan lately is maybe not quite as dominant, not quite as confident. I think it's really more the problem. He says he just never knows if he's going to feel nauseous inside the VR. So it's just not been the same Richard Regan we're used to.
And again, to go through some of those doubts or challenges, race winner from a couple of weeks ago in New Hampshire, could be worse. And it goes to show you that even when he's not feeling 100%, maybe still an extremely talented race car driver. Let's jump on with Matt Gagnon there behind the wheel of the number 14 machine. Started in 25th, was one of the drivers who could not take a time at qualifying, driving his way through the field as he's up and high onto the banks in turns 1 and 2. Again, on this layout, though, turn 8 and turn 9 as he heads to the back straightaway and one of the heaviest braking zones into the backstretch bus stop.
Yeah, and for a lot of drivers, this race was kind of a surprise. Evan, there was some confusion about whether or not this was going to be the oval or the Roval. That got solved last, I think, Wednesday night or Thursday morning. So for a lot of drivers, there was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of concerns about, hey, listen, it's a cutoff race, it's a playoff race, it's on a new layout. And the admin's like, yeah, well, you have a week to practice, go figure it out. So I think for a lot of drivers, maybe their first time seeing this layout across their practice laps, but your leaders so far doing good. And there's Jeff Evans again. He's trying to hold off a couple cars. That's P3 on back on your screen there.
You can see the intervals left-hand side of your screen. Things are pretty comfortable, I would say, for the likes of Hawley up front, 4-second advantage. But Reese Bogue and Daniel Knight in this battle for the number 5 and 6 position are the most close of all the other spots as they continue to run. Of course, they are not drivers in that championship battle. Remember, the green highlights mean drivers are locked in. The orange means they are still in the hunt. So Bogue and Knight, the 2 highest running spoilers. And there's your look at what is the biggest difference to the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. That right-hand turn number 6, we'll call it, left-hand turn 7. Seems spot on the oval that we blend back up onto the big track. But that whole wide arc is completely redone.
Yeah, and it's given drivers fits during practice and in a race. You saw that it was Sherf, we just saw go really wide up, almost tagged the wall there out of the corner. So that's become a very sharp hairpin, and it's really a contention point, Evan. It could be both in iRacing official races or league races or even in real life this weekend because it's super narrow. The racing before that really allows for maybe 2 wide racing or more coming into that point. When you get into that little hairpin right there, You can't be probably maybe 2 wide at most, if not just single file. And so this could provide a real choke up point at different parts of this race or other races as the week goes on. Watch the drivers come through. You'll see them there just kind of all trying to get checked up really hard. And everyone's cutting that corner as hard as they can to try to get the right exit out of that corner.
You'll see a little bit of smoke there off of the 77 truck, getting a little bit too aggressive and locking up the brakes. Some drivers using the curbs, some drivers trying to avoid it. You can see that 60 with the fire out of the pipes as he's way off of the gas, probably driving it in a little bit too deep. That looks to me, though, like it's begging for a dive bomb, right? I mean, that inside is wide open. You get late in this race, talk about maybe a battle for one of the top positions. If that is something that's up for grabs, again, that is going to be a tempting position to try to play defense on. Jumping back into the battle for the number 4 spot, Richard Regan Jr., the one on the move. It was Reese Bogue who made a pass on him, so he goes up to 4th. Regan down to the number 5 spot. And now Richard Regan may have to deal with a 1-2 punch of Daniel Knight and James O'Brien. They are all over him. As we look off of the back bumper of Bogue, he's the one who's trying to get away from this battle.
Yeah, Bogue running a limited schedule this season, so really out here just racing for pride, racing for fun, racing for wins, and right now is ahead of his co-team owner and Richard Regan. Now we're looking forward from Daniel Knight. This is P6, so right ahead of him is Richard Regan. So we've kind of got both angles of that same run. Here's that new hairpin from a truck point of view. You get it way slowed down. Look at that, almost 35 miles an hour, and then back on the gas up into the oval here. So it'll take a long time to get this wound back up all the way. You see right now is in 3rd gear, might hit 4th gear, and just about the time you start to get comfortable, it's time to start braking for the bus stop.
Heavy braking zone. They'll call it 3 corners on the official track map, 2 in the bus stop, and then here the left-hand blend back up is turn number 12, is side by side for 16th and 17th position. Jamie Graham doing battle almost into the fences. They blended back up onto the racetrack. That is such a tricky re-entry where you're pulling back up and onto what is the high bank of turn number 1, but looks like in the end Jamie Graham will get that position for the moment, staying ahead of the number 23 truck in tow.
Yeah, did a great job, and then Graham got a little bit of a wheelie there up on 2 tires out through that chicane and is okay here, so he'll now get the run through NASCAR 3 and 4. This will take us up to road course turn 14 and 15 right here, this little infield chicane. Takes us back around to the start-finish line here at the Roval. And you see a moment ago, that's the tight battle on the top of your screen. That was Jamie Graham and Adams up top. They've separated a little bit since then here. Now we're just about, 13, 14, 15 minutes into this race here. And besides those couple early spins so far, Evan, everything's looking pretty good on track. Drivers are kind of spaced it out now. You see on your intervals and your screen. As this night goes on, probably going to be harder to find close battles.
Yeah, they're going to spread out, and there will be some battles that come together. Of course, a lot of the drivers, again, who did not qualify, you would expect that they will have trucks that are better than mid to high 20s. And what we were talking about, the temptation in turn number 7, that's it right there to the inside. And for that 48 truck, there's not much you can do once that truck is inside of you and alongside, because not only are you going to have to basically take yourself out to throw a block, but once they have the position, you also can't take the corner how you want it. So turn number 7, a good passing opportunity if you're in the spot to do so, just like you saw there.
And that was Ted Lowendick who made that pass. By the way, he's up 15 spots currently on the night, so he did not qualify due to a penalty. And there's James O'Brien, by the way. That was James O'Brien and Daniel Knight. They made some contact there, coming up through that first set of turns into the infield. But Lowendick having a pretty solid run. I said we thought he would. Lowendick started as a road racer on the iRacing service and has made his success down to ovals in the past couple of years. Here's James O'Brien, the 38. Here's Jeff Evans. He's now around Reese Bogue. These guys have had some chirpy words in the past, a little bit of beating and banging. So we'll see what happens as they get close. Bogue pretty much on the back bumper here behind that Miracle Flow machine. And, yeah, Evans is going to pull away.
And we'll see when you get into maybe the exit of the bus stop, can you make up some time out of those big braking zones. You're going to expect to see that gap shrink when we go into it. You would think the truck in front's going to pull away on the exit. He does. A lot of the groundwork, we'll call it, of making up time doesn't actually happen in those great passing opportunities. It happens through a lot of the rhythm sections, through the infield, right? Turns 3 and 4 or 5 and 6. And then you go to finish the deal in those heavy braking zones, but it's so hard to make up time. That was a great exit, though, off of the front stretch chicane for Bogue as he close enough to look into turn number 1. It's going to be the 51 looking. Instead, Jeff Evans, the one to the inside. Bogue follows through. What a drive to make that spot in another good passing opportunity into turn 1.
That was just the momentum being carried by Evans, kind of helping make that pass right there. And just anywhere in this infield, Evan, for me, too wide gets a little sketchy. I know it's possible, but you get nervous just to how this track flows and how everything moves here. So, and then you see him get to run up on that paint. That's a normal line here that is not considered off track in this layout of the track. So you'll see drivers, quote unquote, abusing that paint all night long. And there's the 4-car Reese Bogue, and he is now again holding up his teammate a little bit, and Richard Regan Jr. So Regan gets right to the back bumper. And Evan, sometimes that can mean your teammate behind you is running faster, and he's wishing that you could move. And speaking of dive bombs, I don't know if we'll see the second one, but again, Ted Lowendick just made a second big dive there through that corner, that time around Robert Barney.
Let's take a second look. It's once again turn number 7. There was no secretness about that one. He was already diving to the inside before they even got close to the entry. And the only thing I'd worry about is you make the big dive like that is, you look for somebody to cross you over. But again, that very inside apex, right up and on the sausage curb, is so critical to the actual preferred line that if you throw it into the inside line and take that away from somebody, it's just so hard for them to kind of have any sort of option to carry speed off. And it continues to work because we've seen a handful of passes in that spot in the last few laps alone. Some side-by-side up on the high banks to the front stretch chicane. It's the number 14 winning out in the battle with the 1900.
Also, speaking of side-by-side battles and some battles happening back in the field, back in P23, Jacob Dunn is trying to recover from that drive-through penalty that he had to start the race. He's already up to 23rd. He just had a close battle with Blaine Adams back in the bus stop. He's now running down Doug Evans. He is doing everything he can to keep himself involved in this playoff bubble. Eventually, Evan, tonight will keep a look on the playoff points. As we believe they run, they'll be unofficial until race control, verifies everything post-race. But I believe right now Dunn is likely, if not back in the playoffs, he's got to be right on the bubble of making it work. There it is on the right side of your screen, and currently Dunn back to P11. It is Colton Lane on the bubble, Hunter, Gagnon, Bumgarner, and Doug Evans right there on the line. So we're showing all pluses, Evan, so if I do commentator math, currently a 3-point difference between Lane and so that's how much they're getting from this race. Sorry, that's not what that bubble is here. The bubble, I think, is 4 points between Lane and Hunter at
and
this
now
moment.
3. Down to 3 now, back up to 4. 67 and 63 as Nick Hunter is actively engaged in a battle for position. Looks like Gagnon out by 8. Bumgarner out by 9. And again, that's going to continue to swap because different trucks in different positions. The battle between Lane and Dunn is important because, yes, number 12 is safe, as you can see another spot gained there for the number 60 truck. However, if anybody below the cut were to win this race, well, number 12 would be the first one to get bumped out. So on the math, it's safe, but I would not want to leave that to chances. We got Zach Williams, headed to pit lane only 20 minutes into this race.
Zach Williams got a black flag, and then there's Adams on pit road. So both these drivers right here, both Adams on pit road. This is early. When I talked to some of the drivers earlier tonight, Evan, I was told they thought 30 laps was your fuel run. So these drivers must be trying to pit early, just get off cycle, maybe find some clean air if you think you can find that on the track here and make something happen. 4 tires and gas, not a question, I would think here. You'll see the timer ticking up here for Blaine Adams. That's a long stop. That might be for damage or some kind of penalty, Evan, because 19 seconds on a pit stop is unheard of.
Yeah, and that truck is just currently stationary in the box. So there is, it got 4 tires put on it, but it's still sitting in the box. So some sort of an issue for Blaine Adams may likely take him out of this race in its entirety. So if that's the case, it's going to be a tough blow for him as we take a second look at the bus stop, who had the issues this time. A little bit loose on the entry and a lazy single truck spin in that instance as it was Zach Williams with the trouble.
So that makes me think for Zach Williams, that black flag may have been for incident points. I mean, there is an incident point limit in the Outlap Motorsports Truck Series where you can get a black flag, and eventually you will get DQ'd out of the race if you have enough incident points. And if you don't know what those are, maybe you have a family or a friend or it's just someone watching and you're checking out for the first time, there's things you can do in the race that will cause those incident points. Spinning out your truck is a big one. Hitting something like a wall or another car is a big one. Getting off track, which is a little harder to do with the Roval, but is not impossible, can all deem those points to be viable. So if you get, I think it's to 17, Evan, you'll get a penalty and a black flag. There's a second level beyond that where you'll be parked for the night. So that Zach Williams penalty must be for incident points. Here's a second dive bomb. That's Nick Hunter. Burns it up, locks it up, gets around the 27, and the pass has been made by Nick Hunter. Richard Regan Jr. now down pit road.
Interesting that the number 56 is down and in. He had driven his way around the top 10 in a handful of different positions after starting this race in the number 4 spot. We will keep an eye on him to see if this is going to be scheduled service for him or if there is some sort of another issue. I would not suspect a incident point issue like we saw with the previous truck down pit road because, well, this truck's been steadily running in the top spots. But Richard Regan is going for 4 tires and fuel, and the 56 machine is going to stay in the box for an extended period of time. So something else is wrong for Richard Regan Jr. Remember, race winner at New Hampshire 2 weeks ago. So this race does not have any effect on his championship because we know he's already locked into the round of 12.
Yeah, we know he's been having some hardware problems outside of the car with the VR headsets and much different issues. I'm going to guess if it's a longer pit stop is due to that. I may be wrong. We'll try and get confirmation. But he's definitely out of the car for the moment, so we'll wait.
Out of session now, just a moment ago. So it looks like his night, for whatever the cause is now done.
And as you said, luckily for him, he has everything locked up here, so he doesn't need to worry about that.
Saraf was that last driver to spin on the front straightaway. Trouble for the driver in the number 23 position. Gets it back going. We continue on to get a lot of those single truck spins. Here's the second look. That thing was loose already before it even got into the bus stop or the chicane. It looked okay, and then, yeah, right there, just really weird with the throttle not being able to put down. That thing snapped around super quick on him. But again, he points it the right direction and keeps on going. This is, I know it's a cliche, but a race like this is very much driver versus track, and we're seeing that already.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. On your screen, by the way, these are 2 playoff drivers right here. This is Colton Lane and Matt Gagnon. This is the battle for P15. Colton Lane trying to hold on to a playoff bubble. Matt Gagnon trying everything possible to find his way into the playoffs. That both these drivers need to race hard and make up whatever ground they can. And hey, with Richard Regan Jr. out of the race, that's 1 spot you can gain or already have gained by putting that, passing that car. So good news for both of them. And I agree with you about this. Anytime you road course race, the goals change, the purpose changes, the strategy changes, right? It does become about, driver versus track and driver versus yourself, because look at all the gaps you have right now on this track. It's all about keeping calm, keeping focused, keeping patient so you don't do something to mess up your own race. And it's not so much about the other people on the track.
And a live look at the unofficial points as they run. Colton Lane on the bubble in the number 12 position, now only holding a 3-point advantage over Nick Hunter. So this thing is far from over in terms of watching and looking for who are going to be the 12 drivers who will advance into the next round of these playoffs. Watching the battle for 10th and 11th between Nicholas Schwartz and Dustin Bumgarner for position. Nicholas Acosta a little bit behind them, not really a part of this battle. It's really a 2-truck fight right now between the two of them. Schwartz has been slipping back a little bit. He got passed by Bumgarner a few laps ago. It looks like that 16 machine is starting to pull away just a little bit.
Yeah, we've seen the 177 have a couple problems as the night goes on. Just a couple of spins, a couple loose moments. And now here's James Morgan, by the way. He is basically locked into the playoffs. Doug Evans is not. Look at Doug Evans, bottom of the playoff board back in P16. Unfortunately for him, Evan, he's basically in almost a win or go home kind of scenario. Here's Jamie Graham real quick. He has stopped on track, and he is trying to, don't please back that up right there. That is not where I want you to back that truck up ever. Gets it looped around, and we're good to go. But I was going to say for Doug Evans, look at the points on the right, Evan. He is basically in a win or go home scenario.
Yeah, we kind of, hypothesized aloud about that is, we took a look at the playoff standings coming into this. We'll take a second look at the incident here that happens into the infield. Truck gets loose, starts on its own, and then right there, the contact's going to become as a result of the contact. So it's an unfortunate incident there that Gagnon's going to get a piece of. But you're right. I mean, we kind of said, Evans minus 16. Is that technically a must-win? No, but at that interval, you need a good night, and you need everybody ahead of you to have a bad night. And I think that is coming to fruition. And also for Doug Evans, you're not going to get a caution or a restart or a field flip. So with that truck sitting in P20 right now, I don't want to say shut the door and go home now, but you do not have the same level of unpredictability in a road race that goes green like this that you would in an oval, where you can see late race restarts and pit strategy be a factor.
No, but the unpredictability you do have is just running your race and being patient and finding out what other mistakes others make. We talk about this a lot in 12 or 24-hour races where, you can be running P3, P4 and think, oh my gosh, this is my ceiling. And next thing you know, P1 has an accident in a road race and no cautions come out, and you're just able to kind of soar on by and take the lead. So the same thing for Doug Evans or others applies here. Be patient and run this race. We have about 49 minutes left in it. Who knows what happens? Who knows who has a hardware problem? Who knows who wrecks, who hits a wall, who has a bad pit call? Oh my gosh, speaking of that, the 27 almost had a bad moment there as Nick Hunter got a front row seat.
Yeah, that was the battle for 14th. Colton Lane, the 60, who now Nick Hunter has a good look at, but it was Steve Loving, who both of them just got around, that had the scare, coming back up and onto the banking. So Lane wins out in the battle. For how long, though? Because I think Nicholas Hunter might be one of the better trucks in this exchange, as he is, again, rocking the VR goggles and will set his sights on the next man up the road in Colton Lane. That would be position number 14. Here's a second look at what happened when they came off of 7 onto the banking. It was, I think, Lane the instigator in that one. Went high, and then I think it was, Steve Loving said, all right, you're going way up the hill. I'm going to kind of, use more of the racetrack to follow you up there. And they ended up going into each other's doors.
And Lane's one of the drivers I'm really impressed by, just based upon the interview I had with him pre-race, where he was not confident in this process. He just kind of said, hey, listen, I just have to hold on and hope tonight. It's kind of the impression, paraphrasing a little bit, that he gave me. And so to see him up here, mid-pack, running pretty well up in P14 currently, I'm sure he is surprised as anyone and probably very happy with that run. Here's Mike Toomer Jr. on track, by the way. He's having a solid run here. Not the best spot ever, but a pretty quiet run, which can be a good thing on a road course. Back in P23, he's trying to run down Nick Seraph here. And you'll see them come to these last couple chicanes. We've seen a couple of big passes in real life here in that spot of the track, Evan. We saw maybe some wins and losses decided in real life NASCAR in those corners.
We have, and one thing that's unique about this racetrack too, and this is a good onboard perspective with Mike Toomer, is that you would assume, because this is a Roval, right, split oval with an infield road course, that there's not a lot of elevation in the infield. That's true for probably most Roval configurations, not Charlotte though. No. There is a surprising amount of elevations. Right there is where you would normally turn right on the old layout to get down and back onto the banking. So again, this is that brand new complex and maybe a bit of a defensive line, but the driver in front of Mike there, and Nick Seraph, who we were talking about the dive bomb opportunities in 7, looked like he kind of shielded to the inside a little bit to not leave that inside lane wide open.
Yeah, you see a couple of cars up here. Stacey Hunter's up there and had in his windshield as well. So you see a couple of cars he's kind of having a fixation on, trying to catch and run down. And in a road course race, that's what happens. Not everyone's going to be able to see the leader or race the leader here. So the battles that you're in at any moment on this course, Evan, you kind of treat them like they're a battle for the lead. That's your that's your vision, that's your perspective of the race, and that's what matters to you, is passing one by one. Here is Nicholas Godina, by the way, one of our newer drivers in the league this season, having a good run. He's seen there on the webcam, and it looks pretty calm and chill. It's kind of locked in, but compared to how some people might look on the webcams and how nervous some people may be about running the Roval, he looks pretty, he did look happy until that little chicane happened.
Yeah, that's the key, is you just got to keep a level head. There are so many things about a road course race that can stress you out, but I think, again, you're not going to nail every corner on this kind of a racetrack like you might be able to do on the oval, unless your name is a Max Verstappen, right? Like there's just going to be more inconsistencies, and the key is making sure you're calm, you're under control, you're making adjustments. Your truck is going to be handling worse and worse as these tires continue to get bad, and that is all critical. Is there's some smoke up the road. Let's investigate, though, maybe some damage on Robert Barney, and that is it there. It was his smoke left over from a botched turn number 1 that put that truck nose first into the tires.
Kind of looks like that old Chase Elliott move, doesn't it? The old
he's just got to come back and win the race now.
Yeah, right?
Heartburn turn. It was a good sponsorship while they had it.
Yeah. So right now we'll take a look here and see what is going on with Robert Barney. We'll take a look at that here, and we'll watch here, and we'll see if maybe we can find a way to use our teletrader in just a second here and see what we can use. But right now, you see that all things considered, Evan, I mean, yeah, there's some damage. Oh, never mind. I started to say there's not much damage to that truck, and now look at this here. Let's see if I can get a square on it here. Oh, nope, I can't.
There you go. It's finally gone.
There you go.
And he drove into the box for you.
So you see here lots of difference in the old layout and the new layout here on the screen. Evan was talking about it earlier, and it's going to be the difference. If I can get a square on it. I'm not the best at this teletrader technology yet, Evan. Let's see if I can do it here.
You got like a pen, you got arrows.
Right,
there you go. Squares,
I'll use a square. It's this part right here inside the square. You were talking about how they make the turn up in here. A little squiggly line. Let's have a little fun right here. It's this little part right here.
There we go.
You'll see I was not an A student in art class, so the fact that I get the telestrator is not the best. But right there, they made that turn where that line is, and then come down here to where the square is, and then we go up on the oval. So it's a much wider run back in the oval here. So it's purchased Dustin Ollis. Look at that. That is A+.
There we go. That is old layout.
Someone knows how to color
the trucks following the new layout. So yeah, it goes from what used to be kind of a tricky right-hander uphill, and then you kind of rode that dividing wall between turn 1 and the blend back out. You get rid of that, and instead you have a straighter exit off of what is the backstretch on the infield, and then again you have this more hairpin style turn. It was still a passing zone right here on the other layout, but it was more of a wrecking zone than a passing zone, because it was just hard to set it up. People made a late dive. Not that turn 7 is wholly by any stretch of the imagination now, but it is a little bit more of a Coda-esque, Montreal-esque hairpin that you would see on another road course.
Whoa, Low and Dick got loose there, and you're right. I mean, it makes sense it would be a Coda-esque layout, because this track had some inspiration from help from the designer of Coda. So, Samo, if we can go back to that overwide shot for a second, I have a question for you about that shot. If we get back there in a moment after this battle right here, I'm not going to do this now with this showing. This line right here, I'm going to try and draw the lines. Was this layout ever used in NASCAR?
I think it may have been used for when they were testing the Roval.
Okay.
But I don't know if it was ever, I don't believe it was ever used as an official layout.
That looks like a wild go-kart layout right there. Just constant twists and turns. I was just kind of curious if that part had ever been used there on the track. So
you want them to run the S is what I'm hearing. You want to take the original right-hander, loop back through the middle, and add like 15 seconds to the lap time.
As long as I'm not doing it, I don't care if they do it.
Agent of chaos.
Happy. Yeah, that's me, actually. That's pretty true. Here's James Morgan, by the way. And, Colton laying a contact. Speaking of chaos, we have some right there. And that was the spot that a lot of drivers talked about. Obviously, the unknown, Evan, with this new hairpin. A lot of drivers were concerned about that hairpin all night long. And I think now, for the most part, I think the trouble has passed now that the field is spread out. But a lot of drivers were scared about that hairpin if it was going to stay clean racing, or that would be where the calamity would be.
And so far, we have definitely had our share of moments, of incidents, but I don't know if I would chalk any of them up to the severity of calamity. We've had a lot of single truck spins, maybe a small handful, if that's a unit of measurement, of 2 truck incidents, but nothing out of the ordinary or crazy at all. As you take a look at Bradley Holly, his gap now more than 10 seconds over Mark Kalin in second. He's been there from the jump. James O'Brien started 6th. He's been comfortably in 3rd for some time now. But do not think that because Bradley Holly's a mile up the road that he's taking it easy. I've been watching some of his most recent laps. He's still hanging the back end of the 184 out, getting sideways, counter steering. I mean, he is continuing to push.
Yeah, he is continuing to push. He's doing a great job here and is continuing to push. I will say, though, last time by, I mean, Mark Kalin, 1.2 seconds faster in the lap time than Bradley Holly. Now, the gap between them is still massive, still 9.5 seconds. But if Mark could continue to pull that process off, then that would be pretty impressive if he could make up that gap. So smoke there to the hairpin. All is good. No car left behind, so not sure what happened there. And here's Ted Lowendick. Remember, he had that no qualifying penalty. He's up to P6 on the board. So for the second time this season, Teddy has driven himself from the back of the field near the front and is doing pretty well.
He is, and Doyle Lawrence just now saying that he's going to be coming down to the pit lane from the number 25 position. So we've seen a handful of trucks in and out. They have all, I think maybe with the exception of Colton Lane, who pitted a lap ago, and we didn't really mention it, they've all been kind of off cycle. I think Lane's would be the first I would consider on cycle. And we are just about at the halfway point in this race. So it makes sense that the pit stop window is fast approaching.
And in a road course, your pit stop strategy sometimes is not necessarily defined by the number of laps. Sometimes it's defined by the traffic around you and how much fun that traffic is or is not. So, for example, we're riding on board here with Ted Lowendick. If he, for some reason, felt, Evan, that maybe that Jeff Evans was holding him up or that he didn't want to race with that dirty air or whatever have you, Ted might decide to come in a lap or two early on that pit strategy just so that he can get himself, quote-unquote, out of that traffic. So sometimes your strategy on a road course is defined more about who's around you and what's around you than necessarily what lap you're on. Here's Thomas Sink in the grinds, number 48, by the way, trying to race his way into the next round, and he's going to come down pit road here and have a pretty solid run. Brett Adams now down pit road. This is for the second time, I do believe, and a black flag for Brett Adams. I'm going to guess that one is going to be for speeding in the pit road.
That's going to be a tough one, as you can see on the clock. Thomas Sink just now exiting the pit lane. He was a top 10 truck when he decided to come down, and look out, missing the bus stop entirely there. The number 4 Reese Bogue, so he'll have to slow down and yield some of the time gained. Brett Adams is on pit road as Bogue is still sitting with that pending black flag. He's going to come down to the pit lane. I'm kind of curious how that will shake out. Now he does get the black flag clear, so he did slow down enough.
That was risky, because I'm pretty sure if you come down pit road with that warning flag for cutting the bus stop, you would have turned it into a black flag. So that was one of the riskier moves right there, and I'm a little curious about it. But Reese Bogue now down into his pit stop, into his pit box, and along the road here. So a few drivers pitted. That was Reese Bogue out of P6, by the way. So I think now 7 cars have pitted on cycle here. So pit stops slowly underway. Doug Evans has just pitted. He's coming off a pit road. Dustin Bumgarner's on down, but up front, Holly, Kalin, O'Brien, Evans, and Lowendick. I suspect they're all just going to want to run the truck dry, because the easiest way to beat yourself at this track right now, if you're leading, would be a mistake on pit road around somebody else. So we'll wait and see here what happens. And we're past halfway, so I mean, who knows when they'll come in here, but I think they'll run it dry, Evan.
Yeah, and some drivers are going to argue, listen, I don't need to save anything to the end of the race, and I also would prefer a lighter truck. So there's kind of twofold. One is, well, if you run it dry, you may be able to save some time in pit road by not needing to fuel it all the way up. And some drivers will also say, even if it's a 2-second difference that doesn't matter in the end. I'd rather be super light and basically be empty on a fuel come the end of the race, then run it with still a couple of gallons in there, even if the time to put those extra gallons in don't matter. Some of those things will simply come down to driver preference. It is always a little bit of a risk when you want to cut things close, because you have to ask, is it worth it to make some of these margins so narrow as Stacey Hunter is down pit road?
Yep, Stacey Hunter down at pit road, and is going to join that crew, and it's just allowing for more and more trucks here to keep running on track and gaining spots, and we'll wait and see where everyone cycles out. This Lowendick and Evans battle has not gone away, by the way, and we'll wait and see. Teddy's just kind of riding, I think. I think if he wanted to pass Jeff, he'd maybe put a little bit more into it here. Maybe right here, this hairpin, we've seen Teddy make that dive a few times. He might have been more aggressive. I think he's comfortable just to ride here for the moment, maybe wait until after that pit stop. So I think right now it is time, probably, Evan, about halfway through the race, to do our Miracle Flow team update. We'll start up front, the easiest one to find, that very blue turquoise colored 184 truck of Bradley Holly. Has led every lap tonight. He qualified on pole, having a pretty solid run. And I was kind of joking with Brad as he got up on the curb a little loose there, that, luckily for him that this race is tonight for the cutoff, because he's stoked for the release of Battlefield 6. And I kind of joked to Brad, said, hey, if Battlefield 6 had come out this week, would you have practiced it hard? And everybody kind of giggled, but Brad said, luckily, not a problem. That comes out next Friday.
Timing works out well in that conversation with him. And I think the next driver in line from that crew, you don't have to look far to find Jeff Evans. The number 51 machine is on pit road, going to begin for scheduled service right now. So with 34 minutes left on the clock, we're going to see a 4-tire pit stop and fuel for Evans. Started this race in the number 3 position, has been up and in contention for much, if not most, of this race. He had fallen, I'll put air quotes on it, it's not that big of a deal, to the number 4 spot. That's where the truck had been running. No major issues. He is in and off of pit road pretty clean.
And we'll move back down to P11. That's where you find Nicholas Schwartz. He had a couple moments earlier in this race, maybe a spin or two, and he's just trying to recover and have a great run. But boy, they are beating not only the curbs, there might not be any suspension left in these trucks when the night is over, and how hard they're hitting those curbs and bouncing them up and down. And Schwartz here has already pitted back on lap 28, so he is good on his pit stop. So where he's running now, he likely could continue to gain spots up and down the field. And last here is Doug Evans, the driver who really is in almost a win and in scenario in the points. Came in tonight last in points and 16 points behind the bubbles where he sat, so he'll need to see if he can make something happen. Doug, currently running right now in P19, has also already made his pit stop, so we'll see what spots he can gain as the night goes on. Evan, Miracle Flow is more than hair care. It is built for the bold. They were founded in Rochester, New York back in 2015, and Miracle Flow was created to elevate both your look and your lifestyle. Made in the USA and crafted for real performance, it's made and trusted by those who show up ready, whether it's for game night with the boys or a night out on the town. No shortcuts, no gimmicks, just results. Miracle Flow, because your flow isn't just style, it's a statement. A bunch of statements being made right now by the race officials, Evan. I've seen 2 or 3 black flags go up on the board. Matt Gagnon, a playoff driver, your latest victim. I told you earlier, pit road could be the deciding factor for some drivers tonight.
Yeah, and that's at least the second or third penalty of some sort that we have seen handed out to a driver that was running inside of the top 10. Is pretty hard hit there to the outside wall for Gagnon on the exit of pit lane. And then we'll see, again, using the paved runoff area to the inside to get back going. But I think right there, because he did not take the full corner, is where he gets that slowdown penalty. It obviously has to, I think, some frustration there, parks the car, takes a tow to pit lane. And that's quite a surprise to see that out of Matt Gagnon. Obviously not what he wanted for this night, coming into tonight at a -6. But he may have felt that the damage that he received, Derrick, may have been race-ending anyways.
Yeah, and that's too bad. That was a driver on the bubble, so it's too bad to see him have that moment where he's going to tow back to pit road. I mean, and the truth of where we race in this world is we watch Kalen and Bogue. Boy, I thought Kalen was going to tag the back end of the 4 truck there. And I was going to say, where we, the reality of what we're racing here, though, is if you're Doug Evans or someone else behind the bubble, Nick Hunter maybe, you have to be a little happy that something happened to a playoff driver, because it means one more free spot for you. We'll see how that pans out as the night goes on. But here's Kalen, here's Bo. This is for second and third as a spin. That's one of the Evans trucks. Williams, I believe, is who that was. That was the 6. We saw it go spinning on around. And Mark Kalen's just kind of using this flow. And remember, we talked earlier about this comparing to Coda, Evan, and I think one of the differences in these two tracks, was a lot. First off, there's an oval here. But I think one of the bigger differences is that this track seems to have a flow to it, right? And there's a lot of drivers who would argue with you that Coda doesn't really have a flow. It's a lot of start, stop, a lot of kind of jittering back and forth. But boy, there's a lot of good flow through the infield at the Roval here.
Yeah, there is. And I think that, you look at Coda as a F1 track, it does feel broken up into sectors, right? Long straightaway, couple of corners. Long straightaway, couple of corners. And that's kind of what modern day formula racing kind of demands from a track that's purpose-built for that. I think I still feel some of that here, but I kind of see this as two different parts of the racetrack, just like any other Roval. Same with the Daytona road course, right? You've kind of got your infield portion. I think then you kind of clump the rest of it all together as just the outside, where you do have some long runs up on the banking, and then two pretty big braking zones. Again, the bus stop at the back straightaway and the chicane on the front straightaway. As some issues with Knight into turn number 1. Stayed on the gas to keep it out of the outside wall, but drove the car into the inside wall. Bit of right front damage on that thing. And then what happened with Sync as Nick Seraph, as a black flag, Sync got a little bit loose and locked it up on the exit of the bus stop.
Yeah, luckily for him, no damage. Can't say the same for Daniel Knight, who crushed that inside wall. So that'd be an unfortunate hit for him. Here's the 27. He is fighting right now with Jacob Dunn. Jacob Dunn, by the way, remember, started tonight with a drive-through penalty. Officially, Evan, he's up 15 spots tonight, but we both know he's up more than that because of that drive-through penalty. He has driven his way up to P12. That shows the road course confidence that Jacob Dunn has in himself. I know this week he did some official races, took a podium or two this week, but having a great run overall, and congrats to him. That likely, well, although he's about to get lapped here, likely would, well, I would say, would probably lock him into the next round of playoffs if he keeps up in this spot right here.
That is the goal at the end of the day, is you want to go for the race win, but we will reset the running orders and the standings for the 12 drivers who would advance to the next round of the playoffs when this race is done in about 28 minutes time. We mentioned that Seraph had a black flag penalty. See if this relates to it at all. Way wide and late on the brakes, headed into turn number 7. That truck went around on its own. Probably no black flag there because his rejoin on the racing surface. But if the black flag slowdown didn't cost him enough time, that also going to put a damper on the stopwatch for Nick Seraph as you jump on board with your race leader. Bradley Hawley has been stout so far tonight. Next man up the road is Steve Loving, currently scored in 13th. He's looking to lap Steve, and then Jacob Dunn, next car up the road, also lead lap car in P12, but Bradley Hawley could have forced the issue there. No need to make a desperate dive like that when you're 8 seconds up, so he will take his time and try to set this up when it's a good opportunity, maybe right here.
Yeah, I like what Brad's doing. I think this is the right play, right? You're a leader by 8 seconds. You don't, I mean, lapping these guys now is a bit maybe for pride or just because it needs to happen, you know, per the pace of the race. But there's nothing you get out of lapping these drivers. And so why not be patient? Why not do it when it's safe and make sure nothing bad happens to you? Don't throw away this race, because when you have a 7-second lead over Reese Bogue, Mark Kalin, and others, the only way you're likely to lose this race if you're Bradley Hawley is if you throw it away, right? Or if you force an issue that just, you know, causes a wreck somewhere. So back it up, take your time, and make it happen. Here's Colton Lane. He's up in P15. And remember, I said Colton Werner was very down on himself a little bit about, you know, what he was expecting for tonight. So I think if we talk to Colton later tonight, he'll be very happy with a P15. He's trying to run down P14 and Nick Hunter. Both these drivers trying to find a playoff spot when the round of 12 is set later. So a little bit of battle between these two trucks right here. And lots going on here across the track. Look at this, by the way. I don't think we'll get the full darkness here, Evan, but oh, Nick Hunter's turned around. Hold on, Colton Lane almost hit him. And there's a bit of a wobble from Jeff Evans, but all's going to be okay here. That was a scary moment.
That was a moment. And again, we talked about, I made the point, you're not going to see a race flipping type of, surprise in a race like this where, you want to have a caution in the middle of pit cycle, and that's not going to flip the strategy and take a truck that's in 15th or 20th and put him at a chance to win. But it's not to say that things can't still happen. And again, we continue to see single truck mistakes or car-to-car contact. And again, with how close so many of these bubble positions have been all night long, all it takes is for something to go wrong, and all of a sudden, this race could be flipped on its head for a handful of drivers who are in some of those close points battles. The case quite yet, but I will say, started with 33 trucks in this race, still rocking 25 of them total, 11 of which are on the lead lap, so there's still a lot of trucks all over the racetrack that you've got to be keeping an eye for. And look out, a little bit too wide on the exit at turn number 4 right there, leads to troubles for Nicholas Gadenia.
And I think that led to that black flag incident points you saw up in the top of your screen a second ago. So come back to what I was going to say before the Nick Hunter spin about a lap ago, ironically, as we come back around to the hairpin, is we're not going to get to full darkness here. The race admins made sure we started the race early enough not to have that. But look at the glare on the track. Look at the sun starting to set here. That's going to change your track temp. It also could cause some glare on your windshield throughout certain parts of this track, Evan. It's going to change your braking points. It's going to change how you run this race. So let's see how this track looks in about 24 minutes from now, because some drivers are saying, hey, if it gets dark around here, of course, these NASCAR vehicles do not have headlights, the infield gets a little dark and scary.
Yeah, I saw that the is it the Xfinity race is going to be Saturday night this weekend, so they brought in some additional lighting for the infield part of the road course. But I don't think, despite the fact that iRacing has done such an amazing job in the last couple of years of art updates, I don't know if the temporary light towers that were announced on Twitter 8 hours ago are in the sim yet. Maybe one day, but I think we want to get this one wrapped up before the sun ducks behind those condos in turn number 1. And again, 23 minutes left on the clock. I think we'll get there.
Yeah, I remember those temporary lights came out, was it 2-3 years ago when it rained at the Roval? They put them out in the infield during, I think, the Xfinity race, so the drivers could see through the infield just due to how dark the skies got during that race. So we've seen them out before, but we'll see them out again this weekend, a night course at the Roval. Here's Mark Kalin, by the way. He's trying to hold off James O'Brien. This is for 3rd and 4th. Through the pit cycle, Reese Bogue picked up a spot here on Mark Kalin. So Kalin's falling down to 3rd, and then O'Brien is 4th. Jeff Evans back to 5th with Ted Lowendick behind him. So again, things are starting to spread out as the night goes on. Some battles up and down the track you'll see from time to time. 11 cars left on the lead lap. Nicholas Acosta, the last one left on the lead lap here, and right now we're riding on board with James O'Brien through the oval. We'll see the points again. So let's look at it again. Dunn's pretty good. Colton Lane right up there. Nick Hunter, and that is a tie.
Wow.
Want to see how he breaks the ties on that. And then Dustin Bumgarner, Matt Gagnon, Doug Evans here. So right now, if you're Colton Lane or Nick Hunter, every spot matters from here on out.
And ironically enough, those two trucks are running in order on the racetrack and for position. It is not a battle for position per se at the moment. They're separated by, I call it 3 or 4 seconds or so. But Nick Hunter is scored in 14th position, and Colton Lane is scored in 15th. So Colton Lane would love to make a pass on Nick Hunter to help himself out, and that is a very critical lap down battle for 14th and 15th that may be the deciding factor between who moves on and who gets eliminated. It's far from the only battle. Still watching this fight, James O'Brien in the number 38 machine with a move on Mark Kalin to get up and into the number 3 spot, trying to run away now in turn 9.
Seeing a battle happen here on your screen. Continuing here, this is O'Brien and Kalin on the track. We mentioned the last car on the lead lap, Nicholas Acosta. Acosta in his own right, a very accomplished road racer, is right behind his teammate Jacob Dunn. Acosta has won multiple iRacing special events. The 24 Hours of Nürburgring, I know, comes to mind. I believe he's won also at Spa, won at Le Mans back when it was a special event, do you believe? So some big special event, some road course history here for Nicholas Acosta. and he has offered some guidance to his teammates. I know they did a lot of practice last night, but right now he's just kind of riding behind Jacob Dunn and likely trying to keep him calm and cool and collected as this race goes on.
20 minutes left on the clock. You've got to wonder, from where a lot of these drivers started, where do some surprises still lie? I think the next position on the hot seat might be the battle for P5. Ted Lowendick started way back in 24th position, one of the drivers who could not take a qualifying position. He has driven his all the way up from 24th to P6. It will shortly be putting pressure on Jeff Evans. That may be one of the last top running spots that we see topple before this thing is said and done.
Yeah, maybe. And of course, last week we saw Teddy get through the field with a couple of lucky cautions and was able to get his first shoey of the season in and able to make that happen on stream. I don't think it's going to happen tonight, short of some weird actions happening. You see Ted on the webcam here. You know, I'm kind of disappointed. At one point, Teddy was talking about maybe doing a pedal cam for tonight. I don't think he got one set up in time, Evan, but I was kind of excited if we could have got to see the workings of the feet of Ted Lowendick, the road course specialist.
We've still got time. The Rosemary Custom Homes 110 coming up at COTA later on in the season. Going to be the round of 8 finale. If Ted Lowendick is in a position to fight for a championship come that time, maybe that is our best opportunity to see the pedal cam for Lowendick. As your onboard perspective continues on, they both get around Steve Loving. That was a lapped truck, not for position. Again, he is squarely focused on that pink Miracle Flow 51 of Jeff Evans directly in front of him now as they head to turn number 7. Been one of the better passing opportunities we've talked about all night. Does he make a move here? He doesn't, but he closed the gap now, making about a car length and a half.
Wow, look up ahead, though. That's the car I was focused on in that corner. That was Mark Kalin, who I thought for a second went really wide. I was scared he was going to lose the corner a little bit, but he does maintain his gap on Evans, and this is sort of a 3-car field of different branches of the Whataback team here. Of course, Jeff in the middle is part of the Miracle Flow Racing. We talked about them earlier, but it's a pretty solid run. Well, you know what? I want to know what it's like to sit inside the car of Ted Lowendick and watch this battle happen for a couple laps. So Evan and I are going to sit back. You're going to turn up your headphones, and we're going to feel the noise here on Green Flag TV. Well, that was a fun ride riding on board with Ted Lowendick, Evan. In fact, we actually had to sit on board and watch him make the pass. He fought it forever, and now they're going to get up here around Nicholas Acosta. Ted on the low side of the banking here, and that's pretty cool getting to watch Teddy work his magic. You saw the hands rocking back and forth, and eventually he made the pass here, and he's up to P4.
So I said that might be one of the last positions up for grabs as Lowendick was able to make the move there in the battle with he and Jeff Evans, but maybe not so soon because James O'Brien is right there up the road. To get to P2, you'd have to look for Reese Bogue. Bogue is also not that much further up the road. He's at the start-finish line right now, as you can see the rest of these drivers coming by the start-finish line, but there may be a top 3 in this before it's said and done for Ted Lowendick. He's about 2 seconds and change back from James O'Brien. There's 14 minutes or about 10 laps left. To me, that seems doable, but again, we will see. And you know, it's NASCAR racing, so in reality, minus the point difference, nothing's actually different between 3rd and 4th, Derrick, but everybody always wants to say they got a top 3, not a top 4. So I think James O'Brien will put up a fight if it comes down to it. Yeah,
that may be, and it was actually a fight back here almost a second ago with Morgan and Lane and Nick Hunter up ahead, and Colton Lane is just chirping and saying, hey guys, let's be careful, old tires, and trying to kind of get things calmed down. But watch here what happened coming into the front. Oh boy, Morgan stopped. Morgan then got hit from behind by Colton Lane. So kind of a weird kind of weird accordion effect there. You don't see at the road course there, Evan.
Yeah, kind of just chain effect, stacking everybody up. Again, there's this is not a huge road course when you talk about it in terms of, you know, the codas of the world, but once you get through the first couple of laps, this isn't really one that I feel like really kind of, you know, gets bogged down, and you get these big traffic jams, packs of trucks that can't get around each other. Nothing's really that tight except for maybe the 1-2 complex diving into the infield when you've got those concrete barriers on either side. So yeah, that kind of accordion effect stack up, not something you see a ton when you're racing here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway on the Roval, but watching the big conglomerate of cars up and on the banking as they come down now off of what is turn 4. Nicholas Hunter in control, James Morgan and Colton Lane in chase in the 3-way battle for position 14.
And this is also a battle for that cutoff spot. Look at that on your screen right there. 1 point difference between Hunter up front and Lane in the back. So if Lane passes Morgan, they're tied again. And then if he passes Hunter, he'd be up a point. So right now, as we come here, about 12 minutes to go, this is the race that matters on track currently, because this is for your cutoff spot. So if you're Nick Hunter, you need to block and do everything possible to not let both drivers by. If you're Colton Lane, your first goal, pass James Morgan and at least tie this thing up. Let it come down to a tiebreaker. Let the officials make that ruling. But do something if you can here in these last few laps.
And remember, last time we checked in on the bubble when they were tied, Colton Lane was outrunning Nicholas Hunter. That is no longer the case. So the fastest truck in this trio is Nicholas Hunter. He has already made the pass on Colton Lane or James Morgan in some capacity to turn the tie into a 1-point advantage. So Nick Hunter, I think, is in the catbird seat here now. A ton of pressure to know that your rival for what right now stands to be the final transfer spot is only a handful of the truck lengths behind you. There is no margin for error. You need to put down another 9 or so clean laps to get to the end of this race. But I would rather maybe be Hunter than Lane in terms of it has been going better for the number 12 machine, or 19 machine, sorry, I should say, of Hunter on this run. Now, James Morgan's the interesting one here. He is in between these two and could have a huge factor because all Colton Lane needs to do, pass the 12, and then we're back to tied.
Or if Morgan passes the 19, we're back to a tie. So you're right, James Morgan really is the interesting factor. Oh, there's a car around Colton Lane. Was that for position? That would not have been for position. Sorry, I'm watching timing and scoring. So it does put a gap there. It puts a bit of a moving chicane or a moving roadblock in the way in Daniel Knight. Not that he's doing on purpose, but it just makes it harder for Lane to get up in there and way deep in that corner he went. Jamie Graham is part of a wreck right there. That is a different truck. Oh, that's a bad wreck. That's Nick Schwartz. Oh, that might have been Bradley Holly. That's Sink. Sorry, I just saw a blue car and I got scared it was our leader. That was Thomas Sink, as I'm being told in my ears. So that's going to be possibly a big hit for Thomas Sink right there. And a really nasty part of the track with cars on each side.
9 minutes left. Maybe the final transfer spot into the round of 12 still up for grabs. What happens in the closing moments? There was the contact headed into the infield portion that sent 2 trucks around. Close call for the Teal machine to try to get through. And now maybe some ongoing problems here for Thomas Sink, who has some trouble getting back up and onto the banking. He spun coming off of turn 7.
Yeah, lots to happen here. Nick Schwartz has went ahead and towed that car back to pit road. Thomas Sink's still having problems. He got that car super loose up through the banking. Does that car okay? So lots of points changing here in the last few minutes. Thomas Sink's still on track for the moment. I'm curious if he thinks he needs to come in and get that car looked at, or if he's going to try to stick it out here. Jacob Dunn's going to try and make the run behind Thomas Sink here. But up front, this is James Morgan. This is what we talked about earlier, a moment ago. He is actually now around Nick Hunter. Yeah, he got around Nick Hunter during all that. So now it's back to Hunter and Lane now being back there in that tie. So if you're Colton Lane, you have one job, right? To use that old football meme, that overused phrasing, you have one job to do, and right now it's past Nick Hunter.
That's all it's going to take. And again, James Morgan, Nicholas Hunter in this battle had been the better truck the last few laps. And a big swing and a big miss for Colton Lane. He went way deep into the back straight bus stop. I think got a piece of the wall. I don't think it's going to damage the truck at all, but that just made this much harder because he gifted about an extra 6 truck lengths between these two.
Oh my gosh, that was close. I'm hoping we get a replay of that. That was tight. Watch it again through the bus stop here. Lane just comes in, gets it super wide, hits the curbing wrong. Oh boy. I don't think he hit it, Evan.
If he did, it was gentle, and he was very fortunate, because when that thing first basically missed the right-hand hook out, I thought it was going all the way to the wall. Let's take a look.
I don't hear a lot.
If he did, it was super gentle. And again, no damage in the end, whether he got it or not. But the challenge is he went from being the person that was kind of falling back, right? Nicholas Hunter was pulling away. He had a truck in between them. Things were looking good for the 19. All of a sudden, Colton Lane's on the bumper pressing, and he is the one who makes the big mistake.
Yeah, in the last few laps that we've watched, he's had a hard time getting back up into that transition right there to the banking. He's given up all kinds of truck space here to Nick Hunter. He seems to make it up throughout the rest of the track, but just that transition, again, that's not going to go well. That's going to be hit that time. Yep, exact same spot. He's pushing hard. Remember I said he has one job. He knows that, and he's working too hard at it here. It's a 60 truck, and short of something else happening, watch this here. Listen on him as well. Up on the curbs. Yeah, there's a little bit of a hit. Again, not that hard, all things considered. I mean, for how the trajectory of that truck was pretty well. Here's a battle for second real quick. This is James O'Brien and Reese Bogue. They're battling for second place. They've got Thomas Sink up ahead. That's not for position. So here with about 6 minutes to go, there's still a battle for P2.
Yeah, these battles ongoing. We've been watching Ted Lowendick drive through the field. Well, this battle for second spot is going to invite Lowendick into it as a third truck also. So Reese Bogue playing defense. James O'Brien in the number 38 machine has been the driver who has tried to be the instigator. What does he do? Now, the front straightaway chicane, turns 15, 16, and 17. There's going to be about 5 laps to go. And Ted Lowendick, guys, is only 3/4 of a second behind these two because they are giving up a ton of time fighting with each other.
Yeah, and Lowendick was a little closer, and then he actually got held up out of the bus stop by Thomas Sink a little bit. So that run was closer than this, and we'll see if Teddy can get back up there and make something happen. See here in the bottom of your screen, O'Brien's gaining in the last couple laps. He's trying to close up on Reese Bogue. These guys are teammates, by the way. O'Brien, part of RBM, Regan Bogue Motorsports. So You definitely don't want to see something happen here where your full-time driver makes contact with a part-time driver. So I'm curious. Again, I know you're racing for wins, you're racing for fun here, but does anyone budge?
And you have to think, what is the worth for the risk here? Reese Bogue, one of the non-playoff competitors in this group, right? You see his name is not highlighted in green. It's not highlighted in orange. Reese is not going to be a part of how this championship battle shakes down. So if you're James O'Brien coming into this race, you know, is it worth it for you? You're advanced. I think he goes for it. Ted Lowendick, you're advanced. So for these three, I don't think they have as much risk as some of the other playoff drivers who may need to make a more, we'll call it, business decision and take the points instead of fighting.
No, I agree with that 100%, right? So you'll see that happen here, and we'll see this battle continue up ahead as Jacob Dunn. By the way, he did get lapped, as did Mike Toomer Jr. So those cars are at least a lap down, if not more. We'll watch them follow through, and through the infield, Toomer gets by, or they get by Toomer, I should say, pretty easily. Dunn will not probably put up much of a fight either. He's got to feel pretty content. Dunn, I mean, is running pretty well still. He's running up pretty high in the field, up in P9, so probably happy with that result if he stays there. And you know what? If you're having fun tonight, Evan, tomorrow night you should hang out on the channel, because tomorrow night myself and Justin Prince will be there for the season premiere for Season 2 of the Average Joe Sim Racing League at Daytona International Speedway. That's going to be a fun race. We'll be there all throughout the weekend, different racing on the channel. I think every night this week, maybe, Zero Torque Racing League also at Daytona on Friday. We have a couple races on Saturday. So lots of great action happening. Here's the schedule on the track, and you see the SRAs at Iowa, Blazing Pedalson at Darlington, next week at Homestead, and then Atlanta. So over 40 broadcasts in the month of October. Please stay tuned here on Green Flag TV. You'll see everything upcoming on that schedule and much more. We're going to go from an exciting race at the Roval tonight to an exciting race at the high-speed banks at Daytona tomorrow, Evan. And we've seen a couple moments tonight that'll be probably closer or just as exciting as what we'll see tomorrow night at Daytona.
It's always a good time at the Daytona International Speedway. You're not going to want to miss that one. And again, there is something for you all the way through next week. And don't forget, you get all the way through, SRA and everything, Homestead Atlanta Racing next Tuesday, a doubleheader for you. And the next Wednesday, we are back at it once more for the opener of the round of 12. It's the Nick and Ted's Race for the Cure 200 from iRacing Chicagoland Speedway. So a ton coming up on our Green Flag TV racing calendar as we wait to see, are there any fireworks left in the battle for P2? Your race leader, Bradley Holly, forget about it. 17 seconds out in front. But the Reese Bogue and James O'Brien battle going to the final moments, but Bogue holding, I'm not going to say comfortable, but 4 truck lengths, one of the bigger gaps he's had in the last few laps. It should be about 2 laps to go the next time by.
Yeah, I would agree. 2 laps to go here. Reese Bogue is trying his best to hold off James O'Brien. One last look at the point standings as there. And this is unofficial, by the way. We'll wait for race control to confirm these post-race. But right now, Colton Lane and Nick Cunner still tied. As I look back at my timing and scoring, Hunter is around Lane right now. So that is still a battle on track, and that is for the last spot done pretty far to the good. And then, of course, Bumgarner is 5 points back. So we're watching this battle here. There's still the battle with Hunter and Lane on the track as well. And I think Reese Bogue has this pretty well locked unless something weird happens. He seems pretty comfortable in the truck. Seems pretty happy with how this truck is running. And I think all is good with this battle.
So for Bradley Holly up front, going to be the white flag likely the next time around in this race. Some lap traffic up the road. That's going to be Dustin Bumgarner, the number 8 truck on the racetrack. Is it going to be the 8th and final of the lead lap cars who gets passed by your leader? Do we end with only 8 or 7? Bradley Holly has got nearly half a car length, or half a truck length, I should say, of this entire course ahead of the drivers from second on back. So I think his priority here is just bringing it home clean. The clock is inside of the final 15, and Barney the flagman's got the white flag in the air one more time around for Bradley Holly.
Nothing but a solid amazing run tonight for Bradley Holly. But let's look back to the field, as I think right now there's a couple battles that are happening that need some attention. Look at this up front. This is Colton Lane and Nick Hunter, top of your screen. This is the cutoff spot. This is P12. Colton Lane's going to try and dig it in on the, oh boy, he tried the old Ted Lowendick dive bomb. Didn't work quite as well, and he's just lost so much speed right here. And I don't know if he's going to get it back, Evan. Now, these guys have not taken the white flag yet. They're not done. They're coming still on 2 to go here. So Colton Lane will get one more chance in that hairpin, if not somewhere else.
Yeah, and it's going to be maybe the second last best opportunity is the bus stop at the back straightaway. The pass does not happen there. Where is it going to happen for some of these other battles for position? Because on the bottom right of your screen, your race leader of Bradley Holly now into the back straightaway bus stop. He is clean and through. You saw the pass out of Bumgarner into turn number 1. It's going to be only 7 trucks who can stay within 1 lap of a man who was so good. And in our third race of the playoffs, how about a third different race winner? Bradley Holly, masterclass performance, dominates and wins at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. He is moving on, no doubt about it, to the round of 12. But what other spots are still up for grabs on the final lap of this race? Battle for second spot, down to the final corner. That one not going to matter. It's going to be Bogue second across the line, O'Brien third, Lowendick fourth. Neither of them could get to the 4 truck in the end.
Watch the bottom of the screen right now, full screen. Here it is. That's, oh, Lane tried to stick something in there, and every time he just had such a hard time in that hairpin. So likely coming down to a tie. We'll need to wait and hear from the officials how the ties are broken, but Nick Hunter wants to drive away. Just got to get through the chicane pretty easily, Evan, and the tie will be official. One more time through this chicane to stay off the curb, stay calm, stay cool. Lane digs it in deep, tries to close the gap, doesn't quite get there, makes a valiant effort here through the final corners.
He's going to have one last heavy braking zone. If you're Nicholas Hunter, do you drive it in deep as well to be defensive? Big run for Colton Lane. Final quarter, 1 transfer spot on the line in a tie. Hunter stands strong and will win out the battle for 14th and 15th position. It will go to a post-race tiebreak to Nicholas Hunter and Colton Lane in an incredible battle for the final transfer position, and they wrap up just in time for Bradley Holly to bring it back around with a celebration due on deck as your race winner tonight from the Charlotte Roval in the Scherf Racing Design 215.
Boy, what a dominant performance. What a great job by Bradley Holly. Has walked away all night long, never looked back, gets to burn it down. As you said, our 3rd different winner in the first round of the playoffs.
So this thing is wide open as we look to advance to the round of 12. It started with a Richard Regan Jr. race victory at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Ted Lowendick did it 7 days ago in Kansas. And Bradley Holly wins tonight on the Charlotte Roval. You'll see all 3 of those names competing for the title as these playoffs continue for season number 3 of the Premier Sim Racing Outlap Motorsports Truck Series playoffs. Let's take a look at your full race results. Bradley Holly's final margin of victory, an astounding 19.4 seconds over Reese Bogue, who comes home in second, just ahead of his teammate James O'Brien third, and the incredible charge for Ted Lowendick 24th to 4th, almost got all the way up to second. He finishes there in the Waterback Racing Machine. Jeff Evans is 5th. Mark Kalin and Daniel Knight, the final 2 drivers to finish on the lead lap in this race. Dustin Bumgarner's at 8th. Jacob Dunn gains 18 spots to finish P9. And Thomas Sink rounds out your top 10.
Moving back into P11, that's where you'll find Nicholas Acosta 1 lap down, as is Steve Loving and James Morgan, along with Nick Hunter and Colton Lane. That's the question we're waiting to hear on. I'm going to try and get a hold of officials in just a second and figure that part out. 2 laps down is Jamie Graham, as is Stacy Hunter, Zachary Burnt, Mike Toomer Jr., and Doyle Lawrence, and that takes you back down to P20.
And from there on out, again, a lot of these drivers were still in the race. A couple of them with Doug Evans, 21st, Nick Serif, 22nd, Nicholas Schwartz, 23rd, Evan Williams, 24th, and Nicholas Gadina in the number 25 spot. From this point on, the trucks not making it to full schedule distance will include Matt Gagnon, Brett Adams, Robert Barney, Blaine Adams, and Richard Regan Jr. through your top 30. Of course, not used to seeing Richard there, but he was already locked into the next round of the playoffs. No harm, no foul for him. Zach Williams, 31st. Brian Tope, 32nd. And Colton Easterday comes home in 23rd. That's going to be a look top to bottom at your full race results as we get ready for the Regan Bogue Motorsports post-race show. Speed is just the starting point. Success is built through discipline, focus, and development. At Regan Bogue Motorsports, our iRacing coaching is built to develop fast winners. Through one-on-one training, we focus on the fundamentals that turn fast drivers into champions. Smart racecraft, disciplined decision-making, and pressure-proof performance. This isn't about chasing quick results. It's about building the foundation for lasting success. Regan Bogue Motorsports, built for wins, built for championships. Well, with that, let's kick off our post-race coverage in Charlotte Motor Speedway Victory Lane, where we are standing by with your race winner in tonight's Scherf Racing Designs 215. Bradley Holly absolutely went out there and put on a show. Brad, congratulations on this win. You start up front, you finish up front. There were times, I'll admit, when I looked at the truck and that thing was hanging out. You were still pushing it, but certainly looked like you had it on lock.
Yeah, definitely was. That first stint, I cooked the tires and started losing some time to mark, and then kind of got it locked down and figured it out.
I know for you, there was not a lot of, we'll call it risk coming into this race. You guys already had known by spot of being third in the round of 16 standings. You knew you were going to advance on. So how much of this is just kind of... like when a baseball team gets a bye through the wild card round, just trying to kind of keep up, repetition and momentum and not letting the fact that, hey, we're already locked in deter you from doing anything that you would do, say that this was a must win?
I mean, today was just go out and have some fun. And, just with last week, it being announced that we were going to the Roval, I didn't get the prep like I normally do for road courses. So this weekend was... Well, this last 4 days was basically just turning laps and seeing if I could just get another win on a road course and have some, get some extra points and secure myself more for the Final Four.
And of course, it's a good lead into my next thought. We've seen you win road courses races in the past in this series, but we've also seen some of your competitors find a victory lane in them as well. How important for you do you feel it is the fact that the last race, if you're able to advance to the round of 8 before that championship 4, is another road course challenge in COTA?
It's going to come down to basically just surviving. I believe surviving COTA, and I should theoretically points my way in if I don't win. Just because of how many bonus points and everything I've gained over this year, and I'm definitely going to try to go out and win it because it's fun to win. But I'll have to just see how the 2 races leading up to it go before I have to figure out what I have to do.
It'll be fun to watch as the road towards the championship 4 continues. It'll resume in 1 week's time for you guys for the round of 12 opener at Chicago. We'll let you get out of here and celebrate. But as always, from Victory Lane, who do you want to say hi to?
I want to thank the Waterback guys for, putting in the time, figuring out what we need to do and figuring out lines and just helping each other out. I want to thank you guys for broadcasting us week in and week out. It's always great to watch the races back and listen to what y'all have to talk about during the races. And everybody in our league, we work hard to make it as fun as possible, and so far it's been pretty successful, I feel like.
Well, appreciate you sticking around. I know it's hard work, 75 minutes on the clock, no cautions, no breaks fighting these trucks here at the Roval. So we appreciate you sticking around to chat. Again, congratulations, Bradley, on the race win. And we'll catch you next week in Chicago for what, hopefully for your sake, is a good start to the next round.
Thank you very much.
He's your race winner tonight in the Surf Racing Designs 215. Bradley Hawley takes home the race win here tonight. Well, the battle for second behind that P1 spot was an all-timer. Both of the drivers involved in the battle for second and third are standing by. I think, Derrick, you'll start first with Reese Bogue.
Yeah, we're going to go and welcome in Reese Bogue. And we'll bring him into the broadcast booth. Here we go right about now. We'll welcome in Reese here. And Reese, what a great run it was. We saw you have some close battles throughout the night, but overall a good P2 run here at the Roval. How did that feel?
Not bad. I really run too much practice. Kind of my same story as I feel like every other time we done a race here recently. Just work and other stuff going on. Just haven't had time to jump on and literally joined the session about 3 minutes before qualifying. So not bad. Definitely wish I kind of had another shot there against Brad. Maybe not a yellow, but almost like a reset, I guess. If I can kind of start the race closer to him and not get caught in traffic and have to learn through the race, but. Not bad. Definitely got slick and old tires, but still, overall, not a bad night.
So I'm just curious, inside the Discord room, you have yourself running a part-time season here in the Outlap Motorsports Truck Series. Your teammate, James O'Brien, who's a playoff driver running behind you. Was there any discussion at all about maybe letting him go and letting him claim the P2?
No. I to be completely honest, I didn't notice that tonight was a cutoff race or anything like that. And like I said, I've been running part-time, and I'm not really here to do any team favors. I'm here to just run. So I'm not going to race him real hard, but I'm not going to lay over for him either. So if it come down to it, where if we're door to door and he's getting a little aggressive, I probably let him go. But at the end of the day, I didn't get to that point. I was able to kind of just stay ahead of him steadily and keep the P2.
Fair enough. When is the next time you think we'll see Reese Bogue on the track?
Hopefully more often now. I work in motorsports, and our season's slowing down now, so I got about 3 more weeks of racing, and then everything's going to slow down for the year, so hopefully a more consistent basis, but I'll be looking in about 2 weeks. Probably I'll be back full-time.
Fair enough. Well, listen, well, great job on the run tonight. Pleasure watching your race, and we'll see you soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys. I'd like to give a shout to Regan Bug Motorsports, excuse me, Stint Analyzer, everybody putting the broadcast on, all teammates doing a good job tonight, and congrats, Brad, in the win.
There you go. That is Reese Bogue coming home, P2. Now we'll welcome in the driver who has raced him for at least the last 10, 15 laps of the night, and James O'Brien. James, we saw you racing Reese pretty hard there, trying to get around him. Was there anything left in the truck, or were you just kind of laying back and happy with the podium result? James, you there? I don't think we have James O'Brien currently, so we'll skip ahead here. I want to do a special interview and talk to the driver who moved up through the field for the second week in a row. Let's talk to the driver who finished P4. He moved up 20 spots this evening. He did a shoey after his win last week, and really probably deserves a second one this week. Ted Lowendick, how do you move up 20 spots at the Roval?
Lots of practice. People being very nice out there. I had some people I know just moved out of the way, which was thankful. But no, that's fun. It's a fun little course, and I'm irked I didn't get the second. I know I had the speed to do it, but traffic's really difficult, and it was just struggling there at the end with the tires. But no, it was a lot of fun. I get to qualify next week, thankfully, and I don't have to do this for 3 weeks in a row, so that's good.
That is good. So what does this do for you, like mindset-wise or momentum-wise? Of course, the last cutoff race, I should say, is going to be at COTA in the middle of November. So knowing you were able to move up 20 spots to the Roval, does that transfer in any way over to COTA?
I think so. COTA's it doesn't really have a lot of passing opportunities, and we're running the NASCAR layout and not the GP, I believe. So last time we were there, it was the similar layout, but it had the little chicane, and they've taken the chicane out. So that might be a passing opportunity now. We'll see. But it'll be similar. The rear tires are going to fall off the truck after like 10 laps, and then it's just going to be maintaining it. And but yeah, it'll be cool to have a road course as the final race of a of a round. So looking forward to that one.
Again, we just did it this night, so we'll do it again. Well, Ted, listen, it's always a pleasure watching your race. Congrats on the run, and we'll see you next week at Chicagoland.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right, let's try this one more time. Let's circle back around to P3. We'll welcome you back in to the booth. James O'Brien, you out there?
I can hear you now. I don't know
There
what's
you
going
go.
on.
Technology works.
Yeah,
So
man.
I was saying a second ago, you were out there racing with Reese for the final few laps. What was the mindset? Were you trying to get around Reese? Were you just trying to salvage the run? What was going on out there?
I was mostly trying to salvage the run. My rig was giving me a lot of issues in the last laps. Like I would shift and it wouldn't shift, so I'd have to double shift. My brake was dragging. I don't know how that started happening, so I'd have to pick it up with my foot probably for the last 10 laps or so. So I was really just trying to preserve third, and I told Reese, no pressure from behind. We got to go. Ted is on the way. So luckily we held on to that. But yeah, I was trying to figure out why everything was going wrong at the end there.
Well, you came into tonight locked in the playoffs. You had the green badge under your car number on the broadcast, meant you were good to go. So I'm assuming that felt good, seeing as how you were having all those little gremlins pop up.
Oh yeah, definitely. I didn't really have any expectations this week. I love road course racing, but I never know how well I'm gonna do. I just always want to keep it clean and try to survive, and mission accomplished.
All right, well listen, it was a pleasure watching your race. Anyone you want to give a shout out to or say hello to?
Yeah, you guys for putting this on week after week. Outlap for doing what they do. I got to talk about them with Matt at the Sim Gaming Expo, and it's a great cause. Got a little t-shirt from them, and I love it. Everybody watching, hopefully they enjoyed it, and then everybody at Regan Pogue Motorsports. Reese doesn't get all the credit. And
What's fired a co-owner there?
Oh my goodness, yeah. Sorry, Rich. Yeah, we'll see everybody next week.
All right, James. Once again, thanks for that. We'll see you at Chicagoland.
Yes, sir.
All right, Evan. Well, that wraps up our post-race interviews. And breaking news, I can confirm the tiebreaker goes to the best finish in the round. That unofficially goes to Nick Hunter. So right now, as we stand, Nick Hunter is in. Colton Lane is out.
And it leads me to believe, not that if I, knew that I had a tie break that I would drive it differently, but the way that Colton Lane was driving, it felt to me, Derrick, like he knew he did not have the tie break because he was, again, full on desperation mode there in the final laps. And in the end, Nicholas Hunter, a tip of the cap to him because Colton Lane took some big swings. I think was the faster truck in that battle for 14th position at the end of the race. But he did not open the door once, didn't overdrive a single corner, didn't make a mistake to give an opening to Lane, and I think Nicholas Hunter deserves a ton of credit for that one. And again, it appears that via the tiebreaker, he will be the 12th and final driver moving on into the round of 12, accompanied by our race winners in this round, Richard Regan, Ted Lowendick, and Bradley Holly, and the other 8 names that will advance. And we hit the reset button and look forward to the Chicagoland Speedway to kick off the round of 12 that will feature Chicago, Talladega, and Martinsville.
Oh boy, what a weird set of tracks those are to try to race at. 3 very different disciplines will come into play. I'm excited for next week to go to the track that appears back on the real life schedule in 2026.
It is an iRacing, I think, community favorite. We are thrilled that it's going to be back on the NASCAR calendar in 26. And if you don't want to have to wait until then to go racing in Joliet, Illinois, be with us in about 7 days' time. Until then, that is it for us here tonight from Charlotte. On behalf of our entire team at Green Flag TV, for everybody at Premier Sim Racing, and for your broadcast team tonight. For our producer, Dustin Ollis, for Derrick Watson, and myself, Evan Posocco, want to say thanks for tuning in, and congratulations to all 12 drivers who are advancing to the next round of the playoffs. We'll be back with you Wednesday, October 8th, for iRacing's virtual Chicagoland Speedway. That race and every race of the Outlap Motorsports Truck Series playoffs can be found exclusively right here on Green Flag TV. Until then, good night from Charlotte, and congratulations to your race winner, Bradley Holly.